The samurai did not wake up asking how they felt. They woke up knowing who they were. Their lives were not driven by excitement, inspiration, or sudden bursts of desire. Discipline was not something they searched for. It was something they inhabited, like breath, like posture, like silence before a blade is drawn. In a world where death could arrive without warning, motivation was too fragile to depend on. Feelings changed. Weather changed. The body weakened. Duty did not. Modern minds struggle with this idea. We wait to feel ready. We wait for energy. We wait for the right mood. The samurai never waited. They trained when tired. They showed up when afraid. They practiced when no one was watching, because discipline was not an action. It was an identity shaped long before battle. Motivation asks, "What do I want today?" Discipline asks, "Who am I, regardless of today?" This is why they endured. This is why their calm frightened enemies more than their swords. They built lives where action came before emotion, and commitment existed before comfort. Somewhere beneath your habits, that same structure is waiting to be remembered. Chapter 1. The Awakening. Before the armor, before the sword, there was repetition. A young samurai did not begin his path with visions of honor or dreams of greatness. He began with the same morning, again and again. Cold water on the face before sunrise. The weight of the body standing in silence. The ache of legs held low in training stance, while the mind begged for relief. Nothing dramatic happened. That was the point. Each day looked almost identical to the one before it, and inside that sameness, something was being carved. At first resistance was loud. The body complained. The mind argued. Why today? Why now? Why again? This was the early awakening, not spiritual, but biological. The nervous system learning that it would not be consulted. The samurai did not interpret discomfort as danger. He treated it as weather. Modern people mistake awakening for inspiration. A spark, a realization, a surge of emotion that changes everything. The samurai awakening was quieter and far more unsettling. It was the moment he understood that no one was coming to rescue him from repetition, that his life would be built from ordinary actions performed without applause. He watched others quit. Not in battle, but in training. They waited for motivation. They trained harder on good days and disappeared on bad ones. Slowly, they became unreliable to themselves. The samurai noticed this pattern early. He saw that inconsistency was not a moral flaw, it was a structural one. So he stopped negotiating. Training happened whether the day felt meaningful or empty. The sword was lifted whether confidence was present or absent. Over time, something shifted. The inner noise softened. The question of why faded. Action began to feel lighter than hesitation. This was the true awakening. Not discipline as force, but discipline as gravity. When you remove choice, you remove friction. When you remove friction, energy stops leaking. The samurai was not stronger because he wanted it more. He was stronger because his life allowed fewer exits. There is a moment, often unnoticed, when a person realizes that motivation is a luxury. That waiting to feel ready is another form of avoidance. That identity is shaped by what happens on the days nothing special occurs. This is where the path begins. Quietly, repeatedly, without witnesses. And something in you already recognizes this place. Chapter 2. The Ancient Principle. The samurai did not invent discipline. They inherited it. At the heart of their training lived an ancient principle shared by Zen monasteries and warrior schools alike. Action precedes feeling, not the other way around. Monks rang bells before dawn not because they felt peaceful, but because peace followed obedience to form. The samurai understood the same truth through movement, breath, and steel. In Zen practice, there is a saying without words. You sit before the mind agrees. You bow before the ego softens. The body enters the posture first, and the mind is forced to follow. This was not spirituality as comfort. It was spirituality as structure. Modern neuroscience now explains what ancient schools observed without scanners or data. Repeated action reshapes neural pathways. The brain does not care about intention as much as it cares about repetition. What you do regularly becomes easier. What you avoid becomes heavier. Motivation is not the engine, it is the byproduct. The samurai trained the nervous system long before training the will. Fixed routines removed uncertainty, predictable hardship reduced fear. When the body knows what comes next, resistance weakens. Stress hormones decline, focus sharpens, calm becomes a conditioned response. This is why their discipline looked effortless from the outside. It was never dependent on mood. Mood was irrelevant. In monasteries, novices were not asked if they were ready to wake, ready to clean, ready to sit. Readiness was assumed. The form carried them forward when the self felt small. The samurai lived inside the same container. Ritual replaced motivation. Identity replaced decision. There is a quiet relief in this, though few recognize it at first. When action is pre-decided, the mind stops arguing. When the path is clear, doubt loses its voice. The samurai did not wake each morning to choose discipline. Discipline had already chosen him. This principle survives because it works. It is older than culture, older than philosophy. The body adapts, the mind follows. Identity solidifies. You do not rise to the level of desire, you sink to the level of your systems. This is why modern struggles feel so exhausting. Too many choices, too much negotiation, too much reliance on emotion to carry weight it was never designed to bear. The samurai removed the debate. They trusted form over feeling, structure over mood, practice over promise, and somewhere beneath your restlessness, that same ancient principle is already operating, whether you acknowledge it or not. Chapter 3. The Internal War. Discipline is not a battle against laziness. It is a conflict inside the nervous system. The samurai understood this without naming it. Every time training began, two forces rose. One moved toward effort, the other pulled toward safety. This was not weakness, it was biology. The body is designed to conserve energy. The mind is designed to avoid uncertainty. Together, they resist change with remarkable intelligence. When a blade felt heavy, it was not the arms alone. When fear appeared before combat, it was not cowardice. It was the ancient alarm system activating, flooding the body with signals meant to protect survival. The samurai did not argue with this response. He trained through it. Modern psychology calls this the threat response. Heart rate increases, muscles tighten, attention narrows. The mind creates convincing reasons to stop, rest, tomorrow. Not today. These thoughts feel personal, but they are mechanical. The samurai saw them as weather passing through the body. Most people mistake this internal resistance for a lack of character. They interpret discomfort as a message. The samurai treated it as noise. Through repetition, the nervous system learned a new rule. Effort did not equal danger. Fatigue did not mean collapse. Fear did not require retreat. With enough exposure, the alarm softened. The body stopped panicking. The mind stopped bargaining. This is where true discipline is forged, not in intensity, but in familiarity. There is a quiet moment in training when resistance peaks and then dissolves, when the urge to stop loses its urgency, when action becomes smoother than avoidance. This moment does not feel heroic. It feels ordinary, almost boring. That boredom is the signal that the internal war is ending. The samurai did not eliminate fear, he lowered its authority. He allowed sensation without obeying it. Over time, this rewired the hierarchy inside him. Identity moved above impulse. Commitment rose above comfort. Most people remain trapped because they keep listening to every internal signal as if it were a command. The samurai listened without responding. He knew that the body speaks in reflex, not wisdom, that the mind predicts pain before it arrives. That obedience to every sensation creates a fragile life. So he practiced staying with the breath when it burned, staying with the stance when legs shook, staying with the path when doubt appeared. This was the real battle. And once it was understood, discipline no longer felt like force. It felt like clarity. Chapter 4. The System. The samurai did not rely on willpower. He built a system that made willpower unnecessary. His days were structured long before emotion could interfere. Wake time was fixed. Training blocks were immovable. Meals, maintenance, rest, and repetition followed an order that did not change based on preference. This was not rigidity for its own sake. It was protection against the unstable mind. A system does something subtle. It removes negotiation. When action is scheduled, the self is no longer asked for permission. The samurai did not decide whether to train. He simply moved into the next form. Decision fatigue never accumulated because decisions had already been made. Modern science would call this cognitive offloading. Ancient warriors simply called it discipline. Rules were few, but they were absolute. Train daily, maintain the body, sharpen the blade, study the mind. When rules are clear, behavior becomes clean. Ambiguity disappears. The nervous system relaxes inside predictability. This is where identity begins to shift. The samurai did not see himself as someone who tries. He saw himself as someone who practices. Trying fluctuates. Practice continues. Over time, the system stopped feeling external. It became self-image. To break the routine would have felt like breaking the self. There is a quiet moment when a person realizes that freedom does not come from limitless choice. It comes from commitment to a form that removes chaos. In the middle of this realization, something settles. Effort decreases. Resistance thins. The path feels narrower, but steadier. The samurai also understood constraint. Training occurred in the same places, with the same tools, under the same conditions whenever possible. Familiar environments reduced distraction. Repetition sharpened focus. Novelty was reserved for battle, not for daily life. This is where modern people often rebel. They confuse structure with imprisonment. The samurai experienced the opposite. Structure was liberation from impulse. His system did not demand motivation. It assumed fluctuation and rendered it irrelevant. On strong days, he trained. On weekdays, he trained. The system held him when the self could not. Discipline was no longer something he summoned. It was something that carried him forward, step by step, without asking how he felt about it. Chapter 5. Practice without gaps. The samurai did not aim for perfection. He aimed for continuity. He understood something subtle and unforgiving. Gaps are where discipline dies, not in failure, but in interruption. Missing once teaches the body that missing is possible. Missing twice teaches it that missing is normal. So the rule was simple. Practice every day, regardless of quality. Some days the stance was strong and breath steady. Other days the body felt heavy, unfocused, unwilling. The samurai trained on both days the same way. He did not demand intensity. He demanded presence. This is where modern minds often collapse. They believe discipline requires peak performance. When energy drops, they wait. When focus fades, they pause. The samurai did the opposite. On low days, he shortened the session but never removed it. 5 minutes was acceptable. 0 was not. This preserved the chain. The nervous system learned a powerful lesson. Training was inevitable. Resistance lost leverage because stopping was no longer an option. Over time, showing up became automatic. Effort decreased because consistency had removed drama. There is a quiet shift that happens here. One morning, action feels lighter than avoidance. Not because motivation returned, but because habit has taken root. The body moves before the mind interferes. Discipline stops feeling like discipline. The samurai allowed imperfection without allowing absence. A dull practice still counted. A distracted practice still counted. What mattered was the unbroken line of days. This is how identity stabilizes. You do not become disciplined by heroic effort. You become disciplined by refusing to disappear when conditions are poor. The samurai never asked if today deserved training. He trained because today existed. In battle, this mattered. There is no perfect moment. There is only response. A nervous system trained in continuity does not freeze when conditions degrade. Practice without gaps trained more than muscle. It trained trust. Trust that the body would act. Trust that fear would not decide. Trust that action would arrive even when emotion did not. This is the discipline that survives chaos, not fueled by excitement, not broken by fatigue, held together by the quiet refusal to skip the ordinary day. Chapter 6. Identity. Without effort. At a certain point, discipline stops feeling like something you do and starts feeling like something you are. The samurai reached this stage without ceremony. There was no moment of arrival, no internal announcement. One day, skipping training simply felt unnatural. Not wrong, not shameful, just foreign, like wearing someone else's clothing. This is the moment when identity completes its shift. Identity is not a belief. It is a pattern reinforced so consistently that alternatives lose credibility. The samurai did not repeat disciplined actions because he believed in discipline. He believed in discipline because disciplined action had become the most familiar state of his body. Modern psychology explains this as self-congruence. Behavior that aligns with identity requires less energy. Behavior that contradicts identity creates friction. By removing gaps and maintaining structure, the samurai eliminated internal resistance at its root. He no longer asked what he should do. He knew what he does. This is why motivation was unnecessary. Motivation is required when identity is unstable. When you are undecided about who you are, emotion must push you forward. When identity is settled, action flows without commentary. There is a quiet relief in this stage. The mind becomes simpler. Choices narrow. The constant self-monitoring fades. Life feels lighter not because effort disappears, but because internal conflict does. In the middle of this shift, many miss what is happening. They believe discipline has become easy. In truth, it has become honest. The samurai still felt fatigue, still felt fear, still felt days of dullness. But these states no longer threatened action. They existed alongside it, not above it. This is where discipline reveals its deepest function. It protects identity under pressure. When chaos arrives, people revert to who they are, not what they intend. The samurai prepared for this truth long before battle. His training was not for ideal conditions. It was for disruption. And quietly, without force, you begin to sense whether your own actions are building an identity that can survive stress, or one that collapses the moment conditions change. Chapter 7. Transformation. Transformation is not improvement, it is replacement. The samurai did not become a better version of his old self. The old self dissolved through disuse. Hesitation lost its role. Negotiation lost its voice. What remained was a person shaped by form, repetition, and continuity. This is the end state most never reach, because they keep trying to add discipline on top of an unchanged identity. The samurai did the opposite. He let identity be rewritten by daily behavior. In this state, discipline is invisible. No inner speech is required. No preparation ritual is needed. Action arises naturally because it is expected. The body moves as it has been trained to move. The mind follows without resistance. This is why the samurai appeared calm in moments that shattered others. Calm was not a technique. It was familiarity with pressure. The nervous system recognized stress as known territory, not a signal to retreat. Transformation does not announce itself. Others may notice it first. A steadiness, a reliability, a quiet refusal to break under ordinary excuses. The samurai did not seek confidence. Confidence emerged as a side effect of keeping promises to himself. Not dramatic promises, small, repeated ones. Train today. Show up. Tired. Continue. When unseen. Over time, this creates a person who does not need encouragement, not because they are strong-willed, but because there is nothing left to debate. This is the final discipline, not control, but alignment, when who you are and what you do no longer argue. So the question remains, simple and uncomfortable. What part of you would disappear if you stopped negotiating with yourself? Conclusion. The samurai never needed motivation because their lives were not built on emotion. They were built on form. Form gave them stability when feelings shifted. Structure carried them when desire faded. Continuity protected them from the fragile belief that action requires inspiration. In removing choice, they removed chaos. Modern life teaches the opposite. It tells you to listen to every impulse, to honor every fluctuation, to wait until the mood is right. This creates a life dependent on conditions you cannot control. The samurai trusted something deeper. They trusted repetition over excitement, systems over willpower, identity over intention. They understood that discipline is not a personality trait. It is an environment you build around yourself until resistance has nowhere to hide. This path is quiet. It does not reward spectacle. It does not offer fast results. But it produces something rare, a person who can be relied upon by their own future. You do not need to become a warrior. You do not need ancient armor or ritual. You need fewer negotiations and fewer gaps. You need actions so consistent they begin to define you. Discipline is not about forcing yourself forward. It is about removing the exits that lead backward. And when those exits close, something unexpected happens. You stop asking for motivation, and life starts moving with you instead of against you.